Welcome back to BioMindscape. Today we are going to solve the 2025 paper previous year questions I will take. So let's start. So in the mitochondrial electron transport chain, what is the alternative name of complex 2? The answer is succinate dehydrogenase. What mathematical equation describes the amplification of DNA during PCR over N cycle? 2 raised to N is the answer. Then in frog, which blood vessel is responsible for transporting deoxygenated blood from the body to the heart? So that is the vena cava. Then what is the core definition of reductionist biology? So a physiochemical approach to study and understand living organism at a molecular level. The physicochemical approach to study and understand living organism at the molecular level. Next question is, according to the RNA world hypothesis, why is RNA considered less stable than DNA? Because RNA is chemically reactive due to its single-stranded nature and the presence of the 2OH group, 2-hydroxyl group that is present. What biological interaction is exemplified by epiphyte growing on the mango branch? The answer is commensalism. Identify the two specific subunits that consist of eukaryotic ATS ribosome, the 60S and 40S. Identify the two specific subunits that consist prokaryotic 70S ribosome. So that is 50 and 30S. Always remember, in eukaryotic there is 60-40 for ATS, whereas in prokaryotics the 70S ribosome consists of 50 and 30. For 80 it is 60-40 and for 70 it is 50-30. Zoological park and botanical garden are examples of conservation of ex situ. How is NPP, that is net primary productivity, defined in a context of an ecosystem? The rate of the production of organic matter during photosynthesis minus respiration loss. Which respiratory disorder is characterized by damaged alveolar wall and a decreasing respiratory surface area? That is emphysema. What condition is defined by acute chest pain resulting from insufficient oxygen reaching the heart muscle? That is angina pectoris. Tetany is caused by lower level of dash in the body fluid, that is calcium ions. Why are wind and water pollinated flowers typically not colorful and lacking in the nectar? Because the color and nectar are adaptations to attract the biotic pollinators which are not required for wind or water. Name an alcoholic beverage produced by yeast that is categorized as non-distillate, that is wine or beer. Actinomorphic symmetry is in the floral formula is represented by the symbol, that is a circle inside which it is a plus symbol, that is an actinomorphic. In a floral formula, the symbol G with an underline indicate an ovary, that is superior or inferior. The answer is superior ovary. So what is the medical application of streptokinase produced by an bacterium Streptococcus? That is removing the clots from the blood vessel, that is thrombolytic agent. Which chromosome in the human genome contain the highest number of genes? That is chromosome 1. Where is the cupulatory pad located in the male frog? That is on the first digit of the forelimb. Which phytohormone is primarily responsible for delaying leaf senescence by promoting the nutrition mobility? That is cytokinin, which delay the senescence. That is responsible for delaying the leaf senescence by promoting nutrition mobility, that is cytokinin. It helps in delaying senescence. Now a body cavity that is lined by mesoderm only toward the body wall and not toward the gut is called pseudocoelom. What is pseudocoelom? It is a body cavity which is lined by mesoderm and only towards the body wall and not towards the gut. Always remember, not towards the gut, that is pseudocoelom. What is the function of the acrosome in human sperm cell? It contains an enzyme necessary for penetrating the egg during fertilization. In the life cycle of pteridophyte, what structure is formed immediately after the germination of haploid spore, n number of spore? That is a prothallus that is formed, that is gametophyte. In the life cycle of the pteridophyte, this prothallus is formed immediately after the germination of the haploid spore. Which part of the brain controls the special neural center for regulating the cardiac activity? That is the medulla oblongata, that is responsible for the specialized neural center of regulating the cardiac activity. Now name a colonial green algae that is incapable of fixing atmospheric nitrogen. That is volvox, which is that is a green algae volvox that is incapable of fixing the atmospheric nitrogen. What is the role of RNAi in the eukaryotic organism? RNA interface, it is a method of cellular defense involving in silencing of the specific mRNA. And in recombinant DNA technology, what occurs to beta galactosidase gene when an alien DNA piece is inserted and at its restriction site? That is insertional inactivation that is occurring. When it is occurring in the beta galacto, what occurs? This insertional activity occurs when the beta galactosidase gene, when some outside DNA, that is an alien DNA piece, that is inserted at the restriction site, at that site this DNA piece entered, and because of that, what occurs? This insertional inactivation occurs. Which company first used genetic engineered E. coli to prepare human insulin? That is Eli Lilly. Eli Lilly was the first company that used the genetic engineered E. coli, Escherichia coli, to prepare the human insulin. Eli Lilly. The next question. Enzyme that catalyze the transfer of group other than hydrogen between a pair of substrate, they are called as the transferase enzyme. Now, what is the distinguishing anatomical feature of monocot stem regarding its hypodermis? The hypodermis is sclerenchymatous, not parenchymatous. So this is the distinguishing anatomical feature, that it is sclerenchymatous. Monocot stem regarding the hypodermis is sclerenchymatous, not parenchymatous. In the life cycle of bryophyte, which generation is dominant and independent? That is the gametophyte. The gametophyte is in the life cycle of bryophyte, the gametophyte generation is dominant and independent. And how does the alpha interferon assist in cancer treatment? Because it acts as a biological response modifier that activates the immune system to destroy the tumor. What does this do? The alpha interferon assists in cancer treatment. This alpha interferon acts as a biological response modifier that activates the immune system. What does it do? It activates the immune system for destroying the tumors that are present in the body. Now identify the mitochondrial structure that increase the surface area of ATP production. That is cysty. Christy or cysty, we can say it. So that is the structure that identify the mitochondrial structure, that is cysty mitochondrial structure that increases the surface area for ATP, energy production. Now what color is chlorophyll A when observed through the chromatography? Blue green is the color of the chlorophyll A. It is blue green color. By the end of which month of human pregnancy do the fetus limb and digit develop? That is second month. What is the name of the protein rich outer layer of endosperm and the cereal seeds? That is alluron layer that is present. The alluron layer is the protein rich outer layer of the endosperm in cereal seeds. What is the function of the foam breaker in the stirrer tank bioreactor? That is used to control and break down foam generated during the fermentation process. A mature angiosperm embryo sac typically contain dash nuclei and dash cells. That is 8 nuclei and 7 cells. So a mature angiosperm of embryo sac typically contain how many nucleus and how many cell? 8 nucleus and 7 cell. Once more, a mature angiosperm of embryo sac typically contain 8 nucleus and 7 cells. Name the prokaryotic membranous structure that function in respiration and DNA replication. That is mesosome. Mesosome is the one of prokaryotic membranous structure. Prokaryotic membranous structure. Mesosome is this membranous structure that function in respiration and DNA replication. Then identify the post-transcriptional process where introns are removed and exons are joined. That is splicing. What happens in splicing? The introns are removed and exons are joined. Now polygenetic traits such as the human skin color follow dash inheritance pattern. That is non-Mendelian, that is quantitative inheritance pattern. Which enzyme use heme as essential prosthetic group? That is catalase or peroxidase use the heme group. This heme prosthetic group. Who is recognized as a father of ecology in India? That is Ramdev Mishra. Distinguish between euchromatin and heterochromatin based on the staining density. So euchromatin light stain, heterochromatin dark stain. Euchromatin is loosely packed whereas heterochromatin is densely packed. What does the neoplastic property of cell signifies? Uncontrolled proliferation leading to the formation of the tumor mass. In aqueous gel electrophoresis, DNA fragment move toward the anode, that is positive electrode, which nitrogenous base is specific component of the nucleoside adenosine, that is adenine. In human female, where does the process of gametogenesis, oogenesis, actually begin? During the embryonic development. What is the primary mode of nutrition for all living member in the class? Cyclostomata. The ectoparasitism on fishes. The ectoparasitism on the fishes is the primary mode of nutrition for all living members of the class Cyclostomata. This is related to the fish. What is the primary function of Golgi apparatus? Packing of the material. Packing and delivery of the material that is synthesized by the ER, that is endoplasmic reticulum. In the monocot seed, the single large cotyledon is specifically called scutellum. Scutellum is the layer. In monocot seed, single largest cotyledon, that is scutellum. Then why are all vertebrates considered chordates but not all chordates are vertebrate? Why? Because vertebrate possess a notochord embryonically, which is replaced by the vertebral column in adult. Why it is not called? Why all vertebrates are not considered chordates but not all chordates are vertebrates? Because vertebrate possess notochord embryonically that is replaced by the vertebral columns in the adults. Who is called what? Chordates are not called vertebrates because of the column in adults. What is replaced by the vertebral column? This notochord is replaced by the vertebral column in adults. Where exactly are the antigen binding site located on the antibody molecule? At the N terminal, the variable region of N terminal of heavy chain and light chain. The next question is histone are basically protein rich in the amino acid of lysine and arginine. Histone are basically protein rich. Name the protein rich in the basically protein rich in amino acid. They are dash and dash, lysine and arginine rich. What is the term for the first occurrence of menstruation at the puberty? That is menarche. Which hormone is secreted by the heart to help lowering the blood pressure? That is ANF. What is ANF? Atrial natriuretic factor. The protein portion of conjugated enzyme is known as apoenzyme. So here the answer is apoenzyme. What is the standard unit used to express the productivity of an ecosystem? So the standard unit that is used for the productivity of ecosystem is kilocalorie meter inverse and year inverse or gram inverse year inverse. Sweet potato root and potato stem are example of which evolution? So here the answer for this is convergent or analogous organ. The convergent evolution, here it is analogous organ. In an angiosperm, a single megaspore mother cell undergo dash meiosis and dash mitosis to form a mature embryonic sac. So we have to tell an angiosperm. Here a single megaspore mother cell undergoes how many division of meiosis and mitosis to form a mature embryonic sac. So here the answer for this is 1 meiosis and 3 mitosis. So we can see here 1 mitosis. The angiosperm of a single megaspore mother cell undergo 1 meiosis and 3 mitosis. Which specialized cell layer in the anther provide nourishment to the developing pollen grain? So we have to tell about the cell layer that provide nourishment to the pollen grain in the anther. That is the tapetum that provide the nourishment to the anther. What does it provide? Nourishment for the developing pollen grain in the anther. Tapetum is specialized cell layer present in the anther that provides nourishment to the developing pollen grain. Next, name an example of the flower with a zygomorphic bilateral symmetry. Can you name a flower that have a zygomorphic bilateral symmetry? It is gulmohar, bean or cassia or pea. These are the names of the flower that will show bilateral symmetry. Zygomorphic. Here we can see the flower with zygomorphic bilateral symmetry are cassia, gulmohar, beans or pea. List 3 examples of secondary lymphoid organ. Spleen, lymph node and Pear's patch. These are the 3 names. What type of ecological relationship is shown by fig tree and fig wasp? That is, mutualism is shown by the fig tree and the fig wasp. What is the fundamental function of spindle fiber during meiosis? So to separate the sister chromatid and move them to the opposite pole, this is the function of the chromatid. What is the defining seed characteristics of gymnosperm? That is a naked seed. Here the seeds are naked, not enclosed in the fruits. Why is insulin generally not administered orally to the diabetic patient? Why? Because it is a protein that would be digested in the gastrointestinal tract. Who first proposed that the genetic code should be triplet of nucleotide? It was the George Gamow which proposed this theory of which of the following tissues is classified as a secondary lymphoid organ where matured lymphoid cells interact with the antigen? So there it is a Pure patch. Pure patch is a small intestine, a specialized lymphoid tissue that facilitates the encounter between the mature immune cell and antigen. So the Pure patch is answer. What are the 4 major causes of biodiversity loss collectively known as? The evil quadrant. Which hormone releases from the post pituitary is actually synthesized in the hypothalamus? That is vasopressin or antidiuretic hormone that is released from the post pituitary and is actually synthesized in the hypothalamus. That is the ADH1. So the ADH antidiuretic hormone or vasopressin is the answer. List 2 function of the water vascular system in echinodermata. Now what is the locomotion and the capture transport of the food? Now what type of immunity is present at the birth and provide a non-specific defense? So the immunity that is present from the birth is innate, and what we acquire through the life is acquired immunity. So what type of immunity is present at the birth? That is the innate immunity. So in some bryophyte, next question, in some bryophyte asexual reproduction occur by multicellular green buds. What we call it? It is the gyma. The renal portal system in the frog is it links the kidney with the lower part of the body, that is the hind limb. What is the primary role of the enzyme of Rubisco in the Kelvin cycle? We have to tell the primary role of the enzyme Rubisco. So it catalyzes the carboxylation of the RUBP1, 1 ribulose 1,5 bisphosphate. So the ribulose bisphosphate in the Kelvin cycle, its role is to catalyze the carboxylation of the ribulose 1,5 bisphosphate, RUBP. Identify the protein factor required for termination of transcription in prokaryote. That is the Rho factor that helps in the termination of the transcription in prokaryotes. The Rho factor is the protein factor that is required for the termination of transcription in the prokaryotes. Next question, how do frogs respire while they are in water? Now you have to know that all about the frog, that through the skin there is a cutaneous respiration that occurs in the frog through which they respire. Why must twins of different sexes, boys and girl, be fraternal? So they originate from the two different eggs that is fertilized by two different sperm, that is dizygotic. This is very important question and this can be asked again. Which microbe is used as a baker's yeast for the bread making? That is Saccharomyces cerevisiae, that is used in baking yeast. Where is the hormone progesterone primarily synthesized in the human female body? That is the corpus luteum. Then what mathematical equation represents the VP logistic growth? This is Verhulst-Pearl logistic growth. So this equation is dN by dt is equal to Rn in bracket k minus n upon k. So this is important equation. What is the ratio of wavelength of hydrogen transmission? N is equal to 2, that will give n is equal to 3 here, and n is equal to 4 will give n is equal to 6. So we have to tell the ratio of wavelength of hydrogen, that is 1:4 or 4:1 depending on the order. Which vitamin deficiency is associated with the disease chelosis? That is vitamin B2. The deficiency of the vitamin B2, that is the riboflavin, for it will cause this. If deficiency occurs, then chelosis will happen. This Las-Higgins test is used to detect the nitrogen, sulfur and phosphorus, and what else? That is the halogen. The Las-Higgins test, it is used for detecting nitrogen, sulfur, phosphorus and halogen. Somoclonal are typically obtained through which of the following methods? So the answer for this question is tissue culture. Somoclonal are genetically identical plant produced from a single parent using the micropropagation tissue culture. Here match the organism in the column 1 with the primary respiratory organ. We all know that the fish will respire through the gills. So we have to just find out the option, that is A is equal to 4. So the correct answer for A is fish. Whereas for B, reptiles, we can see that they respire through their lungs, and the colinteridates, they respire through the entire body surface, whereas insect, they respire through their tracheal tubes, and aquatic arthropods, they respire through the gills. Fish, aquatic arthropods use the gills, whereas reptile use the lungs, and colinterate respire via the entire body surface, and insect utilize a system of tracheal tubules. So in grass, the regeneration of the parts removed by the grazing herbivores is done by option A, the meristem that occurs in mature region of woody axis, and option B, the meristem that occurs between the mature tissue. So here the correct answer for this question is the meristem that occurs between the mature tissue, because this describes the intercalary meristem which are located at the base of the leaf and internode in a grass that allow them to regrow quickly after being grazed. And why the meristem that occurs in mature region of woody axis is not true? Because this describes lateral meristem like vascular cambium, which increases the girth. Rather, than the regenerating leaves. Which of the following tissue is primary composed of the dead cell at maturity and provide a mechanical support? We all know that the sclerenchyma is the tissue that is primary composed of the dead cell. So sclerenchyma cell include fiber and sclerite, have a thick lignified wall and are dead at the maturity and provide a rigid mechanical strength. Whereas enenchyma is not the answer because it is a type of parenchyma with large air cavity found mainly in aquatic plants for buoyancy, whereas collenchyma cell are living at maturity and provide a flexibility through they do provide some support, whereas parenchyma they consist of living cell with a thin wall primary involved in the storage and photosynthesis. So this is all the other options are not correct. The correct option is sclerenchyma. Moving on to the next question. The presence of vessel is characteristic features of which group of plant? Bryophyte, angiosperm, gymnosperm and pteridophyte. Which component of phloem is specifically absent in most monocotyledons? So here phloem parenchyma is typically missing in primary phloem of monocots, which is a key anatomical distinctions from the dicots. Whereas companion cells and sieve tubes, they are the incorrect answer because companion cell work closely with the sieve tube and are found in monocots, and sieve tubes are essential for food transport and present in the monocots. Companion cell, sieve tubes, monocots and phloem fibers also found in monocots. Because these phloem fibers are bast fibers, they can be found in monocot, particularly in the later stage of development of specific parts. Now, secondary growth in dicot stem is primarily due to the activity of lateral meristem, namely the vascular cambium and cork cambium. This is true because lateral meristem are responsible for increasing the secondary growth, whereas apical meristem are responsible for the length. Thanks for watching. Do like, share and subscribe BioMindscape.